You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time. Your host, Stu Palmer.
It's a change of topic. It's a different type of guest this week. It is the CEO of the Burnt Chef Project, a mental health service for the hospitality and catering industry, run by CEO Kris Hall. Kris began the Burnt Chef Project in 2019. I myself am in the catering and hospitality industry, so it was an absolute pleasure to get Kris on. I went to a training seminar with him for Brunning & Price, the company I work for, and I'm the wellbeing ambassador for our pub for anyone with mental health issues. So it was great to be on that course, and I spoke to Kris about what they've got in place, services, you name it, you're going to hear all about this fantastic charity. Even if you're not in the hospitality and catering industry, there's coping techniques for mental health in whatever industry you're in, and you'll get a lot from this episode. And you know, people are wrestling with their mental health, so I thought it'd be perfect to do this episode. So my guest, without further ado, is the CEO of the fantastic not-for-profit charity, the Burnt Chef Project. It's Mr. Kris Hall on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today. Enjoy. My guest today, we are coming off the topic of pro wrestling, and we're going into a subject matter that is deep in my heart as well. It is mental health today, and I have got the CEO of the Burnt Chef Project, a non-profit charity, and it's for mental health in the catering and hospitality industry. It's Mr. Kris Hall on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today.
Hi Stu, how's it going?
All good. Kris, I've got to ask you, you started this 3 years ago now. So yeah, how did it come about that you started this?
Yeah, very good question. So the Burnt Chef Project started from first and foremost, my own experience of mental illness, which completely sideswiped me, to be honest. It's hit me out of the blue and had a big impact on my life. It really did affect my relationships and my work. And I just looked around and I spoke to a therapist to begin with, and the therapist said to me, like, what are you looking at? Why are you here? What is it you want to get out of these sessions? And I said, I just want to walk around with a big empty space in my head like everyone else, and being blissfully unaware of life. To which she responded and said, well, actually, hold on, a lot of other people have got stuff going on inside their head, and sometimes they're unwell with it. And it was at that moment, it was like a big aha moment that actually I wasn't the only one who was experiencing difficulty. And I just wanted to do something to try and raise awareness for the fact that, people do struggle with their mental health as well as their physical health. And I looked at the industry that I knew and loved, the hospitality industry that I'd been in for a good 12 years at that point, and thought, yeah, this is for me. I'm going to start taking some black and white photos to raise awareness for mental health and see what happens. And here we are today, 3 years later.
We obviously had you for a training session. I worked for Brunning & Price, of course, about 3 weeks ago now. Can I just say thank you very, very much. All the information, the group work that we did as well was fantastic. Just everything about that training. It's given me a bit of purpose now because I'm the well-being ambassador for my pub. So just thank you. And it was amazing what you gave us that day in terms of training.
No, very welcome. Thank you for your participation. It's always great to see people all together for the shared purpose, and no one knows necessarily what they're expecting to get out of these training sessions, but it's always great to be able to hear feedback once you've had the sessions of things that people have learned and how they've implemented some of those learning methods that we've taught.
Can I just say the inflatable elephant, the elephant in the room, fantastic. Everyone liked that when they went into the room at the Little Fox that day. I tell you, it gave us a talking point before we started on the course.
Yeah, Ellie is absolutely amazing. She's, what better way to start a conversation about something that people don't talk about than putting a 3 meter tall inflatable elephant right in your way, so you have to walk around her. And it's amazing, even with that massive elephant, big black elephant in the room, not one person asked why she was there. or why there was an elephant in there. They just, just acknowledged it and moved on. And yeah, it's about time we started addressing subjects like, mental health, and started actually talking about the reasons why and being curious about why there is an elephant in the room.
One slide on the stuff you were showing us that day that really was alarming was the loss of revenue within the industry. And the reasons why, not just sick days, it's people turning up, maybe, possibly inebriated and coming into work. I kind of gasped when I saw the numbers, Kris, on that slide,
Yeah, it's, presenteeism is what you're talking about, where, as I say during the training sessions, we've all been at work or at an event, perhaps with a cold or flu or potentially hungover, and we know what it's like to not be firing on all cylinders. But it's only very recently we've actually been able to put an actual cost associated with presenteeism. Up until then, it's sort of been guesstimated, and it's been estimated based on various figures. But we've just completed a survey with about 140 people across multiple sites, and 59% of those people were struggling or in crisis. But the cost of that was about £78,000 per month in reduced performance, perhaps, increase in arguments, turnover in tension. And that was just the reduction in performance. When you start to look at how much it would cost to replace the individuals who are looking at leaving, which were 43% of those individuals were looking at leaving, you were looking at over £1 million. So, never has it been more important to start tackling this as a subject matter.
I want to obviously extend off this now. With the Burnt Chef Project, there's a lot of services available. I think it's just to reiterate to people where they can find you and what's available. I think if you can shed some light on the tech service that's provided by you guys as a starting point.
Yeah, certainly. So the Burnt Chef Support Service was really born off the back of the fact that the photos I was taking in the early days and then the merchandise we were selling was opening up a whole range of conversations. People were really starting to engage with this subject. And yet we were having business owners come to us and say, look, we don't know how to help these people. We don't know what services to use. And NHS was overwhelmed, and they said, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to help us? And so the Burnt Chef Support Service was a natural thing for us to invest in, which allows anyone who may be struggling with their mental health or maybe with finances or relationships, just to be able to reach out, text a number 24 hours a day and have a trained volunteer text them back in usually less than 20 minutes. So it's a fantastic service just to be able to give people an opportunity to speak where they may not necessarily have to be known by name, and can speak without fear of anyone ever finding out who they are, really, if they're feeling that the stigma is so strong. So that's one of the services. The other service that we offer is obviously the training that we've spoken about, but we offer a free e-learning platform whereby people can go on and learn about menopause, diversity and inclusion, nutrition, sleep, you name it. We've got a whole host of free to access training modules that are available for anyone around the world, effectively, to learn about your own health and well-being.
You've also got mental health first aid as well. I know you're in conjunction with them. So yeah, it's so many resources from you guys. There's so much stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, at the end of the day, it's a huge topic. And for years, mental health has been just something that, even up until recently, I was doing a training session and one of the exec chefs said to me, well, if they're feeling depressed, they can just, think more positively and that will help them. And you go, that's still the viewpoint that we're dealing with at the moment. We're still dealing with that whole stigma of it's in your head, it doesn't really exist. But look, there's been so much research and so much data recently done to show that your brain physically changes when you're experiencing a mental illness. It shrinks. There are certain elements that don't fire as quickly. So it's not just in your head. There's actual biological changes happening with you that we need to do everything we can do to open conversations, provide support mechanisms, provide education, and just really try and fight this tide, this epidemic of massive proportions.
I'd also like to ask you, you know, there's a lot of people taking their lives as well. I know you've done some videos. It needs to be tackled. I know it's not going to happen overnight, Kris, but we've got to help people. And as you say, it's a bit of a short-sighted view from that exec chef as well. It's just totally, that's the wrong way of looking at it in my estimation.
Yeah, but I don't blame people for their views. At the end of the day, if they don't have the education or knowledge, then they are going to find they're just coming up against that age-old thing of, well, you can think yourself better, which is incorrect. And you're right. You know, the rates of suicide and loss of life due to mental illness are, quite frankly, staggering once you start to look beyond the numbers that we're actually shown. And having first-hand experience of it on an almost weekly basis, it's a huge problem that we need to really start addressing. We need to start opening up more conversations around suicide. We need to learn how to support or perhaps recognize some of the signs. But, you know, in reality, we've just got so very good at hiding the subject if we're experiencing thoughts or feelings of suicide that we have to do so much more to be able to stop this from impacting our friends, our family, even our lives.
I think I've been asked in my role within the pub or the restaurant, it's now to get activities done. Now that isn't my forte, so I've asked the staff, but there is talk of a walk up Snowdon. I don't know, we'll probably do some donations as well. There was talk of this with the guys out front. I'm in the kitchen, I'm obviously back of house. So I think we are going to do that. But also what we picked up on your session was it doesn't have to lead to a mass piss up after the event. So it's trying to bring it away from that environment. I took that away from the session.
Yeah, it's just true. Again, it's just what we've fallen into, isn't it? You know, you finish a stressful job, you want to eat and drink a lot just to be able to try and help mitigate that stress. And yeah, your team bonding doesn't have to involve alcohol, and you can do it responsibly, you know, as well. It doesn't have to be completely no. But things like, for example, escape rooms, or you could do paddleboarding sessions, or, you know, even like you're talking about Snowdon. I'm actually walking up Snowdon with 40 of the B&P team in October. You know, we're going up and down Snowdon 3 different times in 24 hours. So, you know, there's so much that you can do that gets you out, gets you moving, gets you bonding, that doesn't necessarily involve sitting around and drinking all the time. So, but it's unique to each person, and it's an opportunity for your teams and for your environment to be able to say, actually, here's what we'd like to do, and here's what would make the most difference to us. This is the big secret about the whole subject of health and well-being. No one needs to have the answers. You don't need to know what makes someone else tick. All you can do is start a conversation and find out. And the same way, like if there's team building or if there's activities, you don't have to sit there and try and guess. You can ask people. Be curious, use the questions why, how, you know, what is it that people are looking for? That way, then it saves you a lot of the guesswork, and it allows you to try and pinpoint exactly what people are looking for.
I don't want to make this about stats, figures, numbers, but obviously the handout you gave us at the table, and I'm going to look at it now. I'm going to read it word for word so I don't get it wrong. Obviously, the percentage was 84% of experienced health issues within their career. I found that alarming, very high. That stat, that figure.
Yeah, it's I mean, to be honest, the figures are quite sort of bleak reading, but you know, it gives us a lot of an opportunity to start to create forward momentum. So I really am, you know, encouraged by some of the data that we're seeing. You know, things like, for example, putting in place wellbeing champions like yourself. You know, this is a huge step forward for organisations who, you know, up until 5-6 years ago, wasn't really on the agenda. So we're making huge strides, and hopefully those stats will start to read a lot better over the coming years, really.
I wish I had this back in 2013, because I hit rock bottom, Kris. I hit rock bottom. It was hard, and it put a lot of strain on my family, close friends as well. And I'm not trying to make this about me because you're the guest, but I was in a bad spot. I don't look back on it negatively. It's a positive because where I am today. But it was days in bed, curtains shut, 3 or 4 showers a day. That was normal. That's not normal, but it was tough. It was tough on me. But I look back at it with positivity, Kris.
Yeah, and do you know what you should do? Like, I think that anyone who's experienced a mental illness and has come through the other side has a superpower. I mean, I think it's generally such an amazing strength to be able to understand your own mental state, your own mental capacity, in a lot more detail. And it also helps you recognize when other people might be experiencing something similar as well. So it allows you to be in a position to be more empathic and more, a better leader effectively. So, yeah, I would always look at this as, those times, whilst they are bleak and they are quite difficult to get through, if you are fortunate enough to come out the other side, whether that's through medication, help, or even your own recovery naturally over a period of time, then good on you. Like, start paying that forward to other people, recognizing other people and starting those conversations, really.
It was a long slog, but we got there. We got there in the end, man. We got there in the end, I tell you. But I'd like to extend off it another service and people that you've got involved, and on an international level as well, as international ambassadors within the Burnt Chef. So yeah, some stuff about that, if you will.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the key things that we were looking at doing very early on, as you know, is creating more conversations around the subject of health and well-being. And quite frankly, who could do better than people who are both working in hospitality in various roles and who have lived experience of mental illness? So the ambassador network now, I think we've got about 130 ambassadors across the world, all with lived experience of mental illness, all wanting to see a change with the hospitality industry, and all available to talk to about their own experiences with health and well-being as well. So we're really starting to make some progress with that. And our aim is to set up a peer support network whereby our ambassadors, you can come and sit and have a conversation in a safe environment with other like-minded individuals, and make sure that you feel that you're not alone and that you're the only one who's experiencing what you're going through. And it's really, really important that we build that sense of tribe and that sense of community, because that's one of the key things to reducing isolation and hopefully combating mental illness.
I think the problem with people is, I think they want that confidentiality. If they're telling you stuff, to go to individuals now and people that are struggling now, I find it hard. I've told some of the younger staff, they can come to me and talk, I'm good at that sort of stuff, but they're not very forthcoming. I think it's still very tough for people to express how they're feeling.
Yeah, it is, and we've got to be completely open here and say that actually, like most people, it may not necessarily be something they want to do, especially depending on your heritage, your culture, the way you're brought up. There may be a whole host of reasons why you don't necessarily want to start blurting out exactly how you feel. And that's also okay. That's perfectly fine. But it's understanding that actually, every person is unique. Every person has their own way of dealing with things. And trying to get some feedback from them on how best to help them. If you've got younger individuals who are quite open about talking about your mental health and well-being, then engaging with them about it, talking to them openly. On the flip side, if you've got people who don't want to open up and talk about it, you can't force someone, but just being consistent with your message, consistent with your approach, will give that person an opportunity at some stage. If they wanted to use a service whereby they could talk to someone, then it's there. But it's about having that open door, really.
I'd like to ask you as well about the Burnt Chef podcast. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about that. And obviously it has been listened to in 112 countries. So yeah, some stuff about the podcast, man, and how that's been going and the feedback and things of that nature.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the podcast was one of the... It was never my intention to do a podcast. I used to love listening to them, but never wanted to go through the rigmarole of recording them. And I kept getting pestered. People were like, oh, you should do a podcast. It'd be really good. So we had Tony Lewis, one of our ambassadors. He came on and did one of our first episodes, and it went down a storm. We started getting messages from various people within the community saying how much they enjoyed it. And so from then on, I just started recording an episode a week and putting those out. And they were going all around the globe. We had, in our first year, 50,000 downloads. We're up to almost 80,000 now. However, we have had a bit of a break for the last 6 months. So, yeah, it's been a great tool. There's so much content on there, from interviews with a sports performance psychologist from Sweden who works with Olympic gymnasts, to working with the likes of Sat Baines or Paul Ainsworth and having conversations with them about what they do for their teams and the way that they look after their own health and well-being. We've got a episode. Well, we've just had an episode come out recently with Kris Cook, who is a quadruple amputee. So he was born without any arms or legs, and has so far done, I think, 11 marathons and traveled the world multiple times. So, we've just got fantastic guests who are designed to open up conversations about mental health and well-being, talk about hospitality and leadership, but also to have inspiring content to allow others to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's really cool, man. I need to listen to some of them when I get a chance to. Yeah, I will do. I promise you that. Now, outside of the Burnt Chef, what are Kris Hall's interests when he gets time to do stuff of interest to him? I've got to ask you, you've got to come away from the Burnt Chef just for a little bit.
I love that. Do you know what? This is the first podcast I have ever done where someone's actually asked about what I do and what goes going on in my personal life. So, first and foremost, I started playing golf 2 months ago. So I got invited to a golf day at the Belfry to fundraise the Burnt Chef project, and I thought, bloody hell, this is good. Out and about, forced mindfulness, getting some fresh air. So I thought, I'll take this up. And so I get to play golf once a week now when my wife allows. I used to swim quite a lot as well. So I used to swim 3 times a week. I quite enjoyed my swimming, but obviously as the summer comes, we've sort of done a bit less of that. But more recently, I've just about to launch a outdoor laser tag company that I've been building for the last 4 weeks. So yeah, that's very exciting. I'm waiting for the guns to arrive from Riga. But yeah, so bit of a fun thing for me, but also something that hopefully gives enjoyment to other people and gets them out and about moving in fresh air.
Guns from Latvia.
Yeah.
Why can't you source them closer?
Well, the company I'm using is an English company. It's a British company, but they manufacture them in Riga. So they're quite high grade replica military rifles, but they've got all the latest electronics in there, 250-meter range, and so yeah, they're having to come from foreign shores. But once they arrive, there's 20 of the bad boys, and that means 2 groups of 10 can go run around on a farmland for 2 hours.
That's an activity I could do. We'll have to pay you a visit.
Yeah, by all means. I think for team building, it's bloody excellent. We're going to have capture the hostage. You're going to have defuse bombs, and the land is an old quarry, so there's a lot of ways of flanking, and you have to watch all of your different angles. So yeah, there's so much that can be done. Definitely get the team down. There's a team building day there for you that can be quite fun and interesting.
Absolutely. Any sports teams that you follow? I'm not going specific with the sport. I'll ask you that just to close out on this portion.
Yeah, I mean, I used to play rugby myself, so we'd watch Bath every so often, Bath Rugby play. They're not having the best season last season, so it'll be interesting to see how they do this year. Played a bit of football at school, but I never really took to football, never really watched much of it, so I'm useless. When I used to go into kitchens, the reps that I used to train at the time, they would be like, oh, well, yeah, I just talked to a chef about football and then you're straight in there. I didn't have that. So I had to use other things at my disposal. But I don't really get much time to sit and watch much in the way of sport now, just because I'm so busy with everything else. It's a bit of a sad existence, I guess.
I'm glad I've asked you that. It was just to come away from it, just off our central topic there. But yeah, also, I'd like to ask you, obviously, you've got the shop set up as well. So I'd like to ask about the shop, just some information on that for the listeners and the viewers of this podcast.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we had quite ambitious plans when I started about changing an entire worldwide industry. And to do that, we needed to raise funds and as much funds as possible. So my background, whilst working in hospitality, was sales and marketing. So I made the decision to start selling, wristbands and then a black T-shirt, and that black T-shirt turned into a white version. And then before you know it, we've got over 200 lines of merchandise, from hoodies to chef's jackets to T-shirts to well-being journals, pens, wristbands, you name it. Burnt Chef branded merchandise, which helps generate revenue, helps allow us to continue to expand the work that we do. And it also helps to keep spreading the message as well, because people go, what's this whole Burnt Chef project about? Or what's this Fuck Stigma logo about? And it starts a conversation. So it's a really, really useful tool. And our merchandise is available. It's been sent to 38 different countries around the world. Even the exec chef of the Tokyo embassy was wearing a Fuck Stigma T-shirt once upon a time. So it's
that's ace.
What a great way of of spreading the word, right?
That's amazing. I like that. Oh, that's made me laugh, man. That's made me laugh. Yeah, I was also going to ask you just obviously where people can find you. We've obviously spoken about the services and the services you offer, but yeah, obviously the main website and social media where people can find you guys at the Burnt Chef.
Yeah, so you can head over to www.theburntchefproject.com. On there, you'll find all of our surveys, so all the work that we've done previously. You'll also find access to the Burnt Chef support service, access to the Burnt Chef Academy, plus more details of the other services we offer, such as Thrive, which is NHS approved, market leading wellbeing app, which provides you with free counselling without any waiting lists, in 5 minutes every time you need it. So there's so much more information available on the burntchefproject.com website. You can also find us on Instagram at the Burnt Chef Project, Facebook, the Burnt Chef Project, and Twitter, burnt_chef. And much to the dismay of my marketing manager, we have now just set up a TikTok account as well. So you can now find us at the Burnt Chef Project on TikTok for any of you kids that enjoy that medium. Not my personal cup of tea. Too much scrolling for my liking, but a great opportunity to reach a bigger audience.
I'll tell you one positive with TikTok, though. You don't get done for copyright with music, artist music. Because I set one up. I wasn't sure, but you can put whatever song on in the background pretty much, and you don't get done for copyright, Kris.
Well, it's Chinese-based server, isn't it? So they don't do you for copyright because they're taking other bits from you at the same time. So yeah,
Kris.
it's my kid's on it, so I hear enough of it. I don't need to see any more of that.
Oh my god! Yeah, I set one up myself. My missus was scrolling through for a couple of years, probably. I go, this is ridiculous, but I've had a lot of viewership with clips because that's where people go, don't they? I think some of my episodes are quite long-winded, so people do like clips, little shorts. So there we go. Yeah. There we go. My guest today, the CEO of the Burnt Chef Project, a not-for-profit charity for the hospitality and catering industry. It's Mr. Kris Hall, who spared a bit of time to come on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today. Fantastic there from Mr. Kris Hall. He had a breakdown himself. He went through therapy and he's worked in the industry and he knows the pitfalls and just amazing to hear his story, setting up the company obviously, but also, you know, there's a lot of resources on the burnchefproject.com, so please take a look. There's so much stuff on there. It could really help you if you're struggling. It could really help you. Even if you're not in hospitality and catering, I implore you to have a look and have a read through. Some great resources, amazing. The Burn Chef Project also have a podcast too, so yeah, type that into your service provider for podcasts as well. But yeah, it was just nice to come away from wrestling. It was nice to go into mental health, something that everyone needs to know about, the struggles. And I'm sure this 30-minute episode will have helped you if you are struggling. But yeah, as I say, reach out to the Burn Chef Project. There's a tech service as well. And yeah, all the information you need is on the burnchefproject.com. And you can find them on social media as well. The Burn Chef Project into Facebook and Instagram. And then on Twitter, it's Burns_chef as well, if that's how you'd like to digest information from Kris Hall and the Burn Chef team. And we'll be back very, very soon for episode 130 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast. But yeah, this is a special mental health edition, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of this. Take care, everybody.